in an era where creativity can be celebrated overnight. Why is this particular zodiac sign often the one most hated? We're living in a world where intelligence and uniqueness can be glorified with a single click. A 30-second TikTok can turn someone from complete unknown into a cultural icon. A new idea, a creative solution, or an out-of-the-box way of thinking, if timed right, if it goes viral, can bring in millions of views. And yet, while today's creatives are stepping into their golden age, Aquarius, the sign known for its innovation, revolution, and future-forward intellect, is often the one left on the sidelines. Why? Perhaps it's because Aquarian creativity isn't immediately digestible. They don't create things that are easily viral. Instead, they think like liberators, system redesigners. They don't produce content for easy consumption. They question the very foundation of the game itself. And that makes them hard to love in a world that worships speed and accessibility. In astrology, Aquarius is described as a fixed air sign, a paradox in itself. They think flexibly, yet once they believe in something, their conviction is immovable. They can listen to everyone, but never compromise on what they know is wrong. This is what gives them their independence and uniqueness, and it's also what isolates them. Aquarius doesn't live to please others. They live to be true to themselves, but in a society run by algorithms and herd psychology that's almost considered a sin. In the family, they might be labeled stubborn. At work, they're seen as hard to integrate. On social media, they might get unfollowed simply for speaking a truth that's inconvenient, not because they're wrong, but because they're not easily understood. And in a world where everything must be explained within the first 10 seconds, what Aquarius brings is often overlooked. They're not on the wrong path, they're just walking a road that others don't yet have the map to follow. Let's unpack this paradox one part at a time. Not to defend Aquarius, but to understand that sometimes isolation isn't failure, it's the cost of keeping your consciousness uncolonized. Aquarius, a stranger in their own home. You've always been the odd one out. That sentence Aquarius has heard over and over again, yet never truly understood why it left them feeling so alone. In astrology, the sun represents the will to live, while the family, especially the childhood environment, is symbolized by the fourth house and the moon. When someone has their sun in Aquarius, or several key placements like the moon rising sign or Venus in this sign, their life force operates under the principle of freedom, intellect, future orientation. This can deeply clash with traditional family models where emotions and roles are prioritized over critical thinking. Aquarius is an air sign, not particularly adept at processing emotions, yet they are incredibly sensitive when it comes to detecting the underlying structure of any system they're in. As children, they may not have had the vocabulary to articulate it, but they could feel what wasn't being said. The fakeness behind compliments, the control hidden under the label, sacrifice for your sake, or the invisible rules everyone followed without ever asking why. And when Aquarius dares to ask, why do we have to do it that way? The most common response from adults is, don't talk back. From that moment on, the Aquarian child learns a core truth: logic has no place at home. Even though Aquarius may be a well-behaved child, independent, high-achieving, low-maintenance, their emotional bond with family members is often loose, even cold, not because they lack love, but because they don't express it in the way their parents expect. They don't enjoy hugs, they don't say sweet things, they don't cry when scolded, they don't plead when punished. And so they're labeled distant, cold, difficult, strange. The deepest wound isn't the punishment itself, it's the repeated misinterpretation of who they are at their core. As they grow older, the gap between Aquarius and their family often widens. While other members bond over shared meals or warm conversations, Aquarius tends to feel alienated in those very spaces. The usual topics, who's getting married, how much someone makes, whether they bought a house, aren't enough to keep them engaged. Their mind is elsewhere, thinking about humanity's future or an entirely different model of living that has nothing to do with any of that. They may sit at the same table, but they're not on the same frequency. Astrology calls this an energetic mismatch when a soul carrying Aquarian voltage incarnates into a system not yet designed to receive it. The individual isn't wrong, the family isn't wrong, it's just that compatibility hasn't had the chance to happen. And if no one is present enough to truly listen, tolerant enough to accept, then Aquarius will resort to their most familiar response: detach. Live separately, stay free, and never look back. Because isolation might hurt, but contorting themselves just to fit into the family mold, that would suffocate them to the point where they can no longer live authentically. In love, Aquarius isn't cold. They've just learned not to depend. You can't hold the wind in your hands, and you can't own an Aquarius with emotions. If you've ever loved an Aquarius or been loved by one, chances are you felt confused at some point. On one hand, they listen to you intently. They remember every detail you once shared. They inspire you, make you feel like you matter in ways no one else ever has. And then one day, with no warning, they go quiet. Not angry, not bored, just withdrawn. And this is one of the most misunderstood things about Aquarius in love: their sudden disappearance. Astrology shows that when it comes to love, it's not just about your sun sign, your moon, which reflects your emotional needs, and your Venus, which shows how you love and want to be loved, matter just as much. For many Aquarians, these placements are also in air or earth signs, which means they process emotions intellectually or through behavioral structure, not through dramatic displays. Love for Aquarius isn't a fiery meltdown or romantic chaos. It's a meeting of minds and a mutual respect for personal freedom. They dislike control. They don't need you to text back immediately. They're not used to daily affirmations of affection, the kind of love language that many others thrive on. So when you love an Aquarius, you might feel they're distant, detached, or emotionally unavailable. But the truth is, they love with the trust that you're mature enough not to need to be held tight. Aquarius love is like the atmosphere, always there, surrounding everything, but invisible until it disappears. They don't wear emotions on their sleeve, not because they lack them, but because deep down they carry a fear of dependence. Maybe once upon a time they gave their whole heart and paid for it with pain. So now they build emotional armor out of intellect silence and radical independence. But that independence doesn't mean they don't need anyone. They do. They just need a kind of love that doesn't impose, doesn't demand, doesn't turn them into someone else's emotional property. To Aquarius, to love is to be oneself, and to let the other person be themselves too. No possession, no control, no melting into one until all identity's lost. However, in a world that still glorifies traditional attachment closeness, belonging being claimed, Aquarius easily gets labeled as not serious, emotionally numb, or worse, incapable of love. A mature Aquarius won't try to explain away those misunderstandings. They'll love in the way they believe is true, and those who are patient and deep enough to understand will discover a vast emotional universe just encoded in a different language. So if you're loving an Aquarius, don't ask, "Do you love me?" Ask instead, "Do you see me as someone you can trust enough to be free?" If the answer is yes, that is the highest love declaration Aquarius will ever give you. Aquarius, respected but rarely loved. You do your job very well, but there's something about you that makes it hard for me to get close. That sentence, Aquarius has heard it their whole life. In social environments where fitting in is treated almost like a survival instinct, Aquarius is the one who constantly makes others feel unsettled. They might be the most creative person in the group, the one who proposes breakthrough solutions, the one who detangles chaos with completely new thinking. But once the meeting ends, they skip the after party. They don't chit-chat. They don't join the office drama. They go home alone. And that very detachment often earns them labels like difficult to approach, arrogant, lacking team spirit. Astrology names Aquarius the sign of community and humanity, but that doesn't mean they blend in like a best friend to everyone. No. They care about how systems operate in society, not about being the friendly member of any specific group. They love humanity in the big picture sense, but often dislike the personal level assimilation that comes with it. Put differently, they love humankind, but struggle to connect with humans. In the birth chart, Aquarius is ruled by both Uranus, the symbol of innovation, rebellion, and independence, and Saturn, the symbol of rules, limits, and tradition. This dual influence creates a paradox. Aquarius wants to change the world, but has trouble opening up to the very people they're trying to serve. And the result? They are often respected, but not liked. People acknowledge their talent, but don't understand their person. They listen to their presentations, but don't invite them out for coffee. They choose them as team leader, then whisper, "They're kind of cold, aren't they?" But the truth is, Aquarius isn't cold. They just don't see the need to use emotions to win favor. While others might know how to say the right thing to make people feel comfortable, Aquarius says what's right, whether it makes others comfortable or not. That's why people often feel threatened by them, not because Aquarius attacks anyone, but because their sharpness and independence force people to confront their own limitations. Some admire them, some feel irritated. Some quietly try to learn from them, some look for ways to exclude them, but very few truly understand. Aquarius doesn't want to be above anyone. They're just living truthfully at the frequency of mind they were born with. In today's world where being soft, tactful, and socially savvy is seen as essential for workplace survival, someone who's blunt, unfiltered, and uninterested in being liked like Aquarius will naturally be disliked, and they accept that. Because more than anyone else, Aquarius knows, being liked doesn't necessarily help you make an impact, but being respected, that can change an entire system. Aquarius, a future consciousness trapped in the present. Aquarius isn't isolated because they're wrong. They're isolated because they exist in another time. In evolutionary astrology, there's a core concept. Each zodiac sign carries a soul lesson that humanity is meant to learn but hasn't yet been ready for. And when that soul shows up too soon, it becomes a signal sent out of time. Aquarius is one such frequency. Aquarius isn't simply the sign of unconventional thinking. They are transmitters of new consciousness, those who are directly linked to a metaphysical layer of information where ideas about freedom, reform, and human evolution are waiting to be downloaded onto Earth. When you meet a truly awakened Aquarius, you'll feel as if they belong to a civilization that doesn't yet exist. They speak things that today's society doesn't even have vocabulary for. They ask questions that education systems aren't yet built to answer. They feel misplaced, not because they've strayed off the path, but because they've seen a different path, one that hasn't been paved. And because of that, they are rejected, not because they are wrong, but because they are too new. Just as Galileo was condemned for saying the earth revolves around the sun, those who carry the Aquarian frequency often face judgment, isolation, and misunderstanding, not because they lack logic, but because they challenge structures that society has rationalized into permanence in order to avoid change. They are the first to say, this system has a problem, but also the first to be labeled troublemaker, rebellious, disruptive. In the birth chart, Aquarian energy often comes with a major soul assignment, to lead collective consciousness into transition. But with the pioneer's role comes a price: loneliness, self-doubt, and many moments when they just want to disappear from this world. Why? Because when you live on a higher frequency but no one is on the same wavelength, you will always feel alone, even in a crowd. As Rick Levine once said, Aquarius is the radio antenna picking up frequencies the rest of the world hasn't tuned into yet. This explains why Aquarius is often hated, misunderstood, or excluded from the collective orbit. They are not rebels by nature. They're simply people who can't pretend they haven't seen what they've seen. And what they've seen is a different world, more just, more free, more evolved. But to hold on to that vision while still living in a reality that's rigid, outdated, and often toxic, Aquarius must learn how to endure time, because their soul is not in the wrong place. They just arrived earlier than everyone else. Aquarius, just don't erase them from the picture. They're not trying to be eccentric. They're just trying to stay honest with the higher evolution within each of us. After everything, what makes Aquarius hated in family and love in society is not that they're not good enough. It's that they're not like the majority. And this world, no matter how much it preaches, diversity or difference still operates under an unconscious principle. If you're not like me, you're a threat. But the real lesson Aquarius brings to humanity is not a call to be different. It's a much deeper and more confronting question. Are you strong enough to let someone be different from you and still coexist with them? In astrology, Aquarius is sandwiched between Capricorn, all about order and discipline, and Pisces with its spirit of compassion and bringing everything together. This places Aquarius in the role of consciousness bridge, the one who carries awareness from the old system into a soul-centered one. But to do that, they must preserve their own identity in a world that constantly seeks to assimilate everything for the sake of control. And this is where the real lesson for Aquarius begins. You don't need everyone to understand you right away. You don't need to soften, warm up, or be more likable if it means losing who you are. But you also can't keep using detachment as your only safe zone. You are the voice of the future, but that voice needs to be understood, not just echoed into the void. So choose to share a piece of yourself, even a small one, with those who are worthy, not to belong, but to connect. Because even the most brilliant idea still needs to be communicated to create true impact. And to the rest of the world, those who didn't understand, those who hurt, those who left an Aquarius behind. The lesson here isn't to love difference. It's to learn how to listen to a frequency you've never tuned into before. Because who knows, that very difference you dismissed might be reflecting back a part of yourself you abandoned in order to live correctly. Who knows, the person you once called weird might be living more honestly than you've ever dared to. So if you've ever met an Aquarius, don't try to understand them like a normal person. Let them be a separate strand of consciousness and choose to listen not with habit, but with curiosity. You don't have to explain everything, just don't rush to erase it. Because this world doesn't need more people who are the same. This world needs people who dare to live true to their soul design even when it gets them hated. And if you are an Aquarius, remember this. You don't need to be liked. You came here to awaken. And those who are awake enough will recognize your weirdness is the part of their own evolution they've been missing. Perhaps you're an Aquarius who's lived long enough to understand. Not everyone needs to understand you, and you don't need that in order to keep going. Or maybe you're an Aquarius right in the middle of finding yourself again in the midst of chaos, disconnection, and the question, do I even belong here? Each of us, even under the same Zodiac sign, carries a different blueprint and walks through a different set of collisions. Some have been called weird cold, unlike anyone else so often that they almost started believing something was wrong with them. Some have had to hide who they are just to fit into outdated molds. And then there are those Aquarians who finally learned how to live in alignment with the soul design they were born with, even if that means loneliness, doubt, or being cut out of the game. If you're one of those who came before, who was misunderstood, who had to choose freedom over being loved, leave a piece of your story in the comments, because maybe a younger Aquarius feeling lost will read it and realize, so it's not just me after all. And if you're a young Aquarius confused about why you don't feel like anyone else, wondering, am I even normal? Speak up, not to be explained, but to connect. Because maybe someone who once carried your same frequency can help you move through this phase with a little more ease. And if this video said something you've been holding quietly in your heart, whether you're an Aquarius or not, share it. Hit subscribe. If only to understand the Aquarius who's sitting beside you a little better, and to learn how to hold on to them not by control, but by trust. Not by trying to fully understand them, but by simply respecting who they are. Because for Aquarius, sometimes freedom is enough. But if you're kind enough to walk beside them without making them feel caged, they won't leave. Not this time.